Hello, folks. So we're looking at lesson 6 in topic 2, the religion and social change topic. And lesson 6, we're looking at a 20-mark question. Now, this is the longest type of question that you can get in the beliefs and society section in the paper 2, which is where you find the beliefs and society topic in your topics in sociology paper. And you can get two 10-mark questions, one which is a non-item, one which is an item, and one which is a 20 marker, which always has an item. Okay, so what I want to do with you today is look at a example of a 20-mark answer. Look how it's written, look at the bits and points there, consider sort of the marking, the mark scheme, and what it is you guys are going to be doing to try and make sure you're smashing this when it comes to writing it. Okay, so today is not just about this area, and you may wish to watch it back later on to help you with writing essays later on. But this is for our 20 mark that we're working on today. So, as I said, 20 mark questions in sociology and also 30 marks always come with an item. And from that item, you need to draw a couple of points and you need to discuss it. They are looking for what they refer as the hook. And they expect students to use the hooks on a regular basis. So this is a past essay question on this area. And so let's read through the actual question for you. Okay, so the actual question is: applying material from item B and your knowledge, evaluate the view that religious beliefs and organizations are barrier to social change. So that's the actual question. The stem, or the item, is the part which is above it. So this is saying many sociologists argue that religious beliefs and organizations act as conservative forces and barriers to social change. For example, religious doctrines such as the Hindu beliefs in reincarnation or Christian teachings on the family have given religious justification to existing social structures. Similarly, it's argued that religious organizations such as churches are often extremely wealthy and closely linked to elite groups and power structures. Now, when you look at these questions initially, they tend to be a bit scary. It tends to take a little while to get used to looking at them and then thinking, oh, what part of my knowledge actually goes in and links in here? And there's stuff which we've covered in this series which links into this, which is what they expect to be covered. But there is also other stuff which comes up later in the course, which might link in more. And also, some of the examples that we've used. So we've used examples, particularly Christian teachings on art. However, Hindu could also have been used, and you may be more familiar with things on those and talk about issues of crisis in India, on those things there. But they write it to give you a range of points on there. So we're going to be looking at that and using that today. Okay, so first of all, let's go through and analyze the actual question. So here we go. I've gone through and I've put a few little bits around it. So you see in the blue, I've put applying material to item B. That is very much saying I am required to give AO2. I am required to make reference to that item in my answer. But also they do pick up your own knowledge on those things. They do like your own examples to be in there too. And then one of the key command words in there is evaluate. So they are requiring you to evaluate what is being said there. Okay, they don't want it just giving two theoretical points and not applying them. The big difference between a 10 marker with an item and a 20 marker with an item is that they basically throw on an extra load of marks for analysis and evaluation. Okay, so a lot of extra marks go on for the well elaborated, detailed, precise critical points being given in that answer. So it gets to the point where also in our 30 marker, we're looking to even more on that, looking to develop our points a little bit further on those things and give a little more analysis, etc. But with a 20 marker, what we're looking to do is we're looking to follow a fairly simple, straightforward structure, which I'm going to recommend. And then we're going to look at a model and see how they do, see if they follow it fully or if they've dropped off a bit here or there. Anyway, we also, I kind of marked out a few points on there for example. So, for instance, when we look at this first one, so we got reference to examples that we should use. So religious doctrines, we've got Hinduism, got their beliefs in reincarnation, that could be there, or Christian teachings on the family, given religious justifications. Again, those are ones which I would probably hope to be being picked up on. But especially, they use elite group and power structures, and that, you know what that does to me, what that sends off in my head, of course, it's Marxists. Marxism definitely is being implied here. They definitely want you to be covering the Marxist viewpoint on this here. Okay, so I will flag up there again that bit in blue that indicates that we need to apply it to the item, and the again, you can also bring in your own knowledge as well. That's being flagged up there. And finally, you need to consider it critically. And if you don't consider it critically, you are going to be right down on the lower bands. You have to have that critical consideration. You have to have evaluation. You have to have a bit of analysis on there in order to get the better marks, because the majority of the marks of this question are realistically on that. So, and here they've indicated the focus is it's the barriers to social change. What things are stopping that from happening? Okay, so let's now look at this this plan and how we would do it normally. Okay, so first of all, although you need to maintain a level of balance in the response, the question does focus on the notion that beliefs stroke organizations are barriers to social change. So that is actually what they're kind of expecting to be the argument being put forward here. They're expecting to see that being argued. We also, again, I mentioned it once, but I'm going to mention it again and again. The weighting for this question is more on evaluation and analysis than in the 10 marker. Earlier on in this series, I asked you to do a 10 mark question in which you gave just 2 sentences after each point, just giving a critical point about it. This time, we are now looking for 2 developed and detailed critical points. Personally, I'm a fan of the Peel structure. I find it works really well. You can see that being modelled in some of these earlier sessions on there, and if you look back in the PowerPoints, you can see them there. It's a highly efficient, highly effective, highly recognizable structure. It's not being used by this candidate here, but maybe if they did, they would have got slightly higher. So I recommend that. So, but what we're looking to do is we're looking realistically to potentially cover a couple of theories. One saying that it is a barrier, and one maybe saying it isn't. That will give us the safest bet, won't it? Because that's 2 distinctly different points of view. So we're not going to be by accident saying the same thing twice. And it's going to give us a chance to link into the item in different ways in different places. And it's going to kind of cover the area really well. But as you see, I've got points in green, blue, and red. The green, that's the A01, that's the knowledge that they're kind of expecting to be put in the first one. So we could look, for instance, and be using functionalists like Durkheim or Mansky, or we could have Marxism with Karl Marx, or obviously you've got Ernst Bloch or Weber, etc. A little bit on there. Sorry, Weber comes in a minute. Sorry. But you know, Ernst Bloch, for instance, or Gramsci could be bringing up there. We can link it into the item, which we need to do. And by linking the item, we're not just saying, oh, this refers to it here, and then give that. No, we have to explain that. We have to work it through and say what that is, or why it means, or why it's there, why it links in with this particular viewpoint, or why this person's saying this and why that links in. You need to explain it to show that you get it. If you don't explain it, then you don't really show that you get it. So you're going to have to make sure you explain it. And then, as I've indicated, the weighting is higher on evaluations and analysis. So what you're looking to do is have, realistically, my advice would be aim for 2 developed and detailed critical points of analysis, stroke evaluation, using religious fundamentalism as part of that. Okay, so in this case it happens to be religious fundamentalism. It could be something else on those things there, but it's again another factor. So when we then look at religion isn't a barrier, we've got also then the point by Weber, and we have again social action theories. We can use Weber on there. That's what you'll come to understand Weber is. He's a social action theorist technically. That will make more sense when we cover theories and methods, but trust me, he's a social action theorist technically. And then we have linked to the items again, which we need, and then we need again 2 developed critical points is what I'm aiming for you to be able to do and give. Now, you don't officially, with a 20-mark question, need a conclusion. It can be something where you give an extra little bit of analysis or points there and go there, and it can gain you credit. But in a 30-mark question, which is our longest questions, there you are required to give a conclusion, but you're not technically required to give a conclusion and can get a full mark answer without a conclusion for a 20 marker. So I just want to flag that up. You can do it, and the example which we look at does do one, and it does help with it. But you can gain full marks without a conclusion for a 20-mark question. For a 30-mark question, they want that analysis aspect, which is present in any good conclusion. We'll do some work on that throughout the year. So this is the answer all in one, the model answer that we've got for you. Let's click our fingers and there you go. That's it with examiner eye on. So when an examiner looks at this, they are looking for skills. The green is the A01, the blue is the A02, the red is the A03. A01 is knowledge, A02 is application, A03 is evaluation and analysis. So we can see there kind of the weighting of this. There's a reasonable amount of knowledge being given. That's quite high. There is also some stuff where that they're applying clearly, and there's also a reasonable amount of evaluation, but it could be more. That's the thing. It could be more here on this. So let's go through and quickly look at it as we go through, because this is a bit big. So let's zoom in, shall we, onto different parts. So the first one, it goes in. Well, what's commentary on this first little bit on there? So it's a broad introduction that rephrases the question and includes references to what is going to be covered in the essay. Okay. Some students love doing that. They say what they're going to say on those things there. Tends to be English students who tend to do that, to be honest. We don't have to do that, but we can. It covers a few approaches which will be used on those things there. Then they get kind of into it properly in the second part, and they make that link. I've highlighted the part which they're linking in to the item there to make it easy to pops out for you. They've got some specialist terminology. They've got reference to Durkheim. They've got Moransky. They've got psychological benefit going through there. They're using theorists and they're using examples to make an effective point. They then go on to do something which I wouldn't do. They go straight into outlining a different point of view. Personally, I would at that point go straight on to give your first point of evaluation stroke analysis, and then I'll give you a second point of evaluation stroke analysis. And I think they make a mistake here. And I think that is a mistake which leads to them not having the balance right. They go straight on to the next point, and while their point is good and they make it relevant on those things there, the example is good. What they don't do is give analysis straight away of that first point of view, which might come back to bite them a little bit later on. So then we move on, and we do see they have started going on to do analysis now. Okay, they're picking up, they're saying, however, so clearly it's contradictory, and they're going through, they're working through. They've got quite a lot of specialist terms in there. They're making it clear. They're using example of ISIS, and the idea of radical change can happen, and so the analysis of the Marxist fundamental view is being brought into question there. So they're kind of covering both on this. They also help to show that they understand the point they're making rather than just using specialist terms, and that's quite important. And that's why that example is really helpful, because it shows us that the student actually gets the area rather than it's just regurgitating into the paper what they've learned. There is a difference in that. So then when we go on, we see that they have gone on to give that extra detail. So clearly opening up there, they're giving quite a lot of information about Weber and his ideas and his points on there. And so they go on to give that extra theory, but also then that critical point as well. So that helps us to see that they do seem to understand the area. They also are getting a chance to get that sort of breadth and depth that they need in, which if they just gone for one, that wouldn't really be very effective. So we've got that, and then we've got, as I say, we've got a nice little critical point there. So it goes on to dispute the original view being given in the evaluation. So it challenges that, and it's got Robertson coming up and challenging it with his quote about the Catholic Church kind of pushing out those liberal theologists and being regressive for quite a long time. So it also kind of questions the assertions that are being used by Weber with his Calvinists on there as well. So anyway, breaking down, when we look at paragraph 6 at the conclusion, we do not require, but it can be done. As I've said multiple times so far, you don't have to do a conclusion. You can get full marks without it, but on this occasion, the way it's been written is actually beneficial. Okay, so it's in red because actually what they've ended up doing is using this more probably as evaluation. If I'm honest here, I wouldn't say it's the best conclusions, because conclusions should be bringing in and weighing the arguments presented so far, and this isn't what this does. What it does is it brings in more contradictory evidence. So I would argue that although it says in conclusion, this is more evaluation really. And I'd say there's the benefit of the extra evaluation, but they haven't really framed or phrased it as quite as well as they could have. Okay, so that they use those points. And they use a relatively contemporary example, not with the Black Civil Rights Movement, with the those things there. But again, it's not perfect on it. Okay, so when we look at the marks available, we see again there's up to 20 marks. Now, as I say, the majority of those marks actually are coming in this column 3, application, evaluation, analysis. That's where actually the majority of the marks are present in this. And by the time we get into a 30 marker, it's very definitely there. Now, they do give a largely accurate, broad or deep, but incomplete account of each one of those. And the number of significant aspects are covered in the question, largely explicitly relevant to the question when they're doing the application. There is some limited explicit evaluation. They're not as precise and as developed as I'm going to try and hone you into being. I'm going to try and make sure you guys are evaluation and analysis ninjas. So we're going to try and make sure we really hone you in on that. I think that they could go better on there. So when we look at the exam feedback, they give it a band 4, which, you know what, in exam conditions, I would be happy for most students to achieve that on there. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be in a good way, leading to a positive grade. But I still think it'd be done better. So they say it's a strong essay that is well detailed and uses appropriate explained material. Clear structure and specialist technology is used effectively, and essay leans towards the requirements of the question posed. Is a religious barrier to social change. There's also reasonable analysis and evaluation. Is it perfect? No. Why did I not show you a perfect one? Because you're just starting off, and the likelihood is that if I show you an absolute perfect one and say try and do that, you will not achieve it, and you will think, oh, that's terrible. Whereas if I provide you one which is not totally awesome but is achievable, actually then you can move towards that. And if I tell you what's good and how to improve on it, then you might be able to also get up and smash it yourself a bit more effectively. So that's why quite often you see teachers do this and not giving necessarily the full marks on this when they're giving answers. So even better, there could have been a use of more detail to help that information throughout. But particularly, we also see that evaluation could be more balanced, because it's not quite balanced in covering those different theories. And also, it could be more developed at times, which, for instance, I don't know, is there like a structure? Oh, yeah, there is. Use the Peel structure. If you'd done that, if you followed my advice, if you imitated my style that you can see in those previous PowerPoints, you would have got better evaluative points. Okay, so the overall feedback from the examiner on this was that, yeah, okay, they had 30 minutes to write this type of question, and that's how long they expect you to be writing it in the exam. So a 20-mark question, that's going to be 30 minutes. For a 30-mark one, that's going to be 45 minutes. A 10-mark one, that's going to be 15 minutes. It goes up in lots of 15 minutes, sorry. Each time we go up 10 marks, we go up 15 minutes. So in this one, this case, this is actually about 610 words. You could aim for about 650 in that time if you write quickly. Yeah, you could aim to get that many words on the page in that time, which is probably going to be between 2.5 to 3 pages, depending on the handwriting style on those. Please, 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 for the love of all examiners, please make sure if you've got tiny writing, or if your letters are all the same height, yeah, it makes it incredibly difficult to read as an examiner. So please, 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 especially this early point in your course, please, 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 please work on your handwriting to increase the legibility for these examiners, because at the end of the day, they will do their absolute best to award marks for you. But if they cannot make out what is being written, they will not credit it. Okay, so you need to try and make sure it's nice, clear, and legible. If you generally got a problem with your writing on those things, then you need to let us know sooner rather than later, because there can be, for some people, a benefit of using a laptop on there, but it has to be part of your standard way of working, and we need to get lots of things in place in advance. And to be honest, also, you need to be able to type 650 words accurately, please, accurately in 30 minutes for it to not be a disadvantage to you. So bear that in mind too. Don't just think, oh, I want to use a laptop. Think, how quickly can I type? Because that's a thing too. You don't want to be in a situation where it takes you, 20 seconds to type a word, which you could have written in 0.5. So it's clearly structured, and the specialist terminology, when we look at these things, it's a good essay that's well detailed and uses appropriate explained material. It's clearly structured, and the specialist terminology is used effectively, and the essay leans towards the requirements of the question posed, i.e., is religion a barrier to social change? There is also at times some good analysis and evaluation, but there could be further points, or they could take their points further. Yeah, so that's what the examiner is saying there. They also point out there could have been more use of the item to help inform the essay's detail. The precision is not quite where they want it to be yet, to be absolutely busting it one there. Okay, so this has been a lesson in which we've looked at an example, and which, if you check on your homework, you should very shortly find a 20-mark question arriving in your class charts for your homework. Okay, so it'll probably be on your email for you. So please do check that. Likelihood is you're going to be having one shortly. Thank you very much, folks.